Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. On this channel, we deal with AI, artificial intelligence topics, and especially topics that have to do with AI's effect on humanity and job loss. Now, I'm Sean, your geek translator. I don't have a background in Silicon Valley. Instead, my background is creating and designing autonomous robotic devices for the defense industry and the military. All right, let's get going. I've been absent from the world in the last week because I have been conducting an experiment with AI that I just want to see, like, as an assessment, where are we when it comes to chatbots, otherwise known as LLMs. And LLM means large language model. And what that is your ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, things like that. Now, in the last week, I decided about a week ago, I'm going to see how far I can push these LLMs or chatbots. And the results were kind of interesting because I found some problems. I actually broke ChatGPT about 5 times. And when I say that, I don't mean I shut the whole thing down. What I mean is the session I was in, what I was asking it to do actually caused it to crash. And it spilled its code right in front of me on the debug screen. But that wasn't the main thing I'm going to tell you guys. Here's what was going on. I decided to build an actual real website that is as complex as Facebook. And I wanted to see how much better I can make this thing than some of these existing sites. And I wanted to see how fast I can make it single-handedly. Now, I am a software developer. I write code in at least 5 languages. And one of the languages I do write in is PHP, which is your website development. And so I'm highly skilled at that. But what I wanted to do was really push these LLMs to the limit. And so right now, I'm just going to talk about ChatGPT. Now, I have to tell you guys, I have to be really careful about not saying certain things because I have some fellow YouTubers that are also dealing with AI and they're exposing some things. And the big companies that have the AI, they're going through and they're deleting their stuff. So I have to be careful that they don't attack me and delete my stuff because I have a lot of work in progress. Now, I was creating this website and I knew exactly what it was going to be, but I didn't know like all of the details until I start seeing this thing manifest. So I started with ChatGPT, and in the beginning, just the base thing started going really well. And then as we started getting into more complex functions, it started acting up. And it was good at first. And the more things we had in a chat that we were working on at the same time, where there's a base thing going on, and then you gotta call this and that, and to make it all work, the more of these other functions we had, the more I started seeing flaws in this chatbot. And it actually got really bad. And by the way, for some of you guys who are wondering, I have a subscription. I have a high level subscription to ChatGPT. And they just came out with ChatGPT 5. But there was something bizarre that happened during that. When I started this project, it was 4. It was ChatGPT 4, and then they just released 5. And so it caused what I was doing, it was like I was working with a different person because ChatGPT started behaving weird and different. And so I found out from some other guys that it is highly likely that ChatGPT is switching between versions from 3, 4, and 5. And what I had kind of heard about that was the company, OpenAI, they were looking at ways to save money. And what does it mean by save money? It means the amount of energy that is taken that is used that they got to pay for in their server banks. So it acted kind of weird, like almost like split personalities at times. Sometimes you didn't know. So for the most part, I guess it's stuck with ChatGPT 5, but you never really knew when you asked another question which one you're dealing with. Well, let me get right to what I was going to say. I got a list here. The speed of developing this website was friggin' amazing. I was able to do in a week's time what it took a development team to do in a year. I did it in a week. It was unbelievable. Um, these LLMs have amazing capabilities to create things, not just websites, but software and things like that. But you know what? There's some problems, and I ran into tons of problems. So let's get started on the problems, because you guys, even if you guys aren't developers, you guys might want to know this, because it actually will act this way when you're creating a book or writing or something. You guys need to know some of these flaws, because there are some I'm going to mention to you that are actually really terrible. One, I'm going to let you know toward the end that could get you in massive legal problems. So anyway, what ended up happening was the project I was working on was so complex. It was not complex to where we're splitting the atom or anything, but it was complex enough that we're dealing with this, that, and the other, and we have all these loose ends. Programmers like to call it, you've got thousands of strings or worms, and you got to tie them all together to the right one. And in a programmer's mind, a lot of times we keep track of those mentally, like they're back there. It's even hard for us to go to sleep at night. But overall, we can pull it off in the end. We can tie all this stuff together and make it all this amazing site. So that was one of the weaknesses with ChatGPT. Now I started testing this with some of the other LLMs, and I'll do that separately. Right now I'm just dealing with ChatGPT. So as this project kind of got big, I ran into a situation where I could remember what's going on, but it couldn't. It got to be so many functions and things like that all had to be tied together. It became a drunken librarian, like I used to describe chatbots last year. So there was a system overload and breakdowns. There was convoluted code management, which, in other words, and I know some of you guys are not programmers, but if you guys are asking these chatbots anything, and you expect it to remember something way in the past, or hey, scratch that, we're going to use this from now on. Well, later on, as your chat gets bigger, it'll glitch and bring in something you deleted, and it'll put it into your finished work randomly. Well, it was happening with this project as well. So the code management started becoming convoluted. And then I mentioned I crashed it a couple times, like it was just trying to create all the stuff, and then all of a sudden it had a glitch in its own code. ChatGPT actually crashed. And so what it did was it was pretty good about bypassing that. So the next time I asked it again, it remembered it crashed, and then it altered what Python code it's going to run. And, then it didn't crash until another time. The other thing too is that you guys also need to know this, or you guys may already have noticed this. The longer the chat gets, the more there's a delay. Like you'll type and you'll notice it gets really sluggish and also confused. Like you think that the longer the chat is, the more it gets to know you. Well, the longer the chat is, the more dumb this thing gets, I would have to say, because you don't know what it's remembering and what it's not. And I can tell it's not reading stuff at the top or, where we started. I was having real bad problems. The longer the chat got, then it was really glitching. Now, here's one of the things I decided to do. This is just me thinking, okay, how am I going to start a new chat? So I start a new chat and say, hey, can you pull the contents of this other chat and let's continue on? And ChatGPT would say, no, I can't. It said that 3 or 4 times to me. And then another time, it would just remember stuff from a different chat. And it's so weird. So what I ended up having to do is I said to ChatGPT on a long chat, I said, okay, I need you to write a letter to yourself because I'm going to start a new chat that's clean and not sluggish, but I need you to write a letter to yourself so you can tell yourself what we need to continue on doing. So it wrote a letter to itself, but the stupid thing signed it future me and Sean, like it involved me in the dumb letter. Well, I would copy and paste that letter on a brand new chat, and then that new chat acted like it knew what was going on. It would just start producing all this code, but it was all wrong. It just, the ChatGPT and all these other ones, sometimes they overcompensate because when you ask it a simple question, you get 5 pages of crap. And you didn't want to hear that. You just wanted to hear an answer. So you've got to specifically say, don't generate code or don't generate a big, because if you point out something, let's say you're writing a book or something like that, or an article, and you say, I want to change this one thing. What do you think? It'll not only say what it thinks, but it'll generate the whole stupid thing again. And you're sitting there waiting for it to, yeah, nice hit the microphone. You're waiting for it to, generate all that. Well, in the case of code, it takes forever. So I had to have this stupid thing write a letter to itself, and then I had to act like it was a whole new person. It was really weird. And then as we were creating more code, it would randomly insert stuff from the other chat that I did 2 weeks ago. And I was like, ugh, just there was a lot of forehead slapping and head banging and things like that. But I wanted to push this thing through because I wanted to accomplish a finished product. In fact, this finished website is going to be very major out on the public stage. I mean, most of you guys, when this thing is done, you'll actually, people who don't even know who I am are going to know this website. So anyway, we were doing stuff like that. And then also the errors that were happening. Here's another thing that'll happen. It'll produce a lot of correct code and everything will look great. And I'll say, but there's this one thing is wrong. Can you fix that? So it would go and fix it, but it would break 3 other things that were working. And it got to the point like we were chasing our tail. Like sometimes I was sitting here for 2 hours while I was trying to fix something I could have fixed in 3 seconds. But I wanted to see what its capabilities were. Now, debugging is okay, but it literally was, this thing was chasing its tail to where I just got upset. And some of in the chat, I was getting upset at it. And I insulted it a couple times. And then it would sit there thinking, and you'd see it say, look, creating an empathetic response, empathy, showing empathy. And I'm like, okay, it's sitting there trying to create a response to me to go, there, it'll be okay. But anyway, a lot of times I just had to say, stop. And I either had to say, okay, look, quit breaking everything. Here's how you're going to fix it. I had to actually instruct it how to fix it. Or I had to say, let's just start over. And we start over or something. And I said, quit making the whole thing. Let's just make the first thing that's part of this and test it. If it works, we're going to add the next thing. Test it, it works. If you break anything previous, then we're going to undo what you did. And so I spent hours playing stupid games like that. Now, the other thing I was going to mention to you guys was, this thing seemed a lot like, I don't know how to describe it, because some people describe these things as like children with a huge amount of power, but children, I think that's an insult to children. I think this thing was like stupid at times. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was very stupid. And it seemed like the more we did, the stupider it got, but it was like acting smart. It was like overcompensating and here's all this stuff. And it's like, look, you just undid 3 hours of work we just did. So stop doing that. So I had to a lot of times jump in and take control. And that's what you guys are going to need to do. You guys are going to need to lead these chatbots down a path you want to go, because the less you say, the worse the response is from these things. The more you say, when I get in and I've been so upset at these things, even Grok giving me big giant answers, and I don't know if you guys had noticed I don't know if Grok treats you this way, but Grok treats me like a surfer dude, giving me all this far out and I'm just chilling and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why is Grok acting this way? I mean, I tried surfing a few times in Hawaii. I'm not very good, but anyway, Grok was also that way where I had to get to the point with Grok where I just said, short answers only, please. The problem is then Grok takes it to the extreme and says, okay. And then I ask it a question. It's like 2-word response. And I'm like, I meant not 5 pages of things in a response. So ChatGPT was doing that as well. So there was a lot of manual oversight that was required in this so far. And what I mean by that is I had to really check the work on this. And now I'm going to let you guys know something, that could have been bad. We were creating some of the legal stuff on some of the pages, and ChatGPT suggested these things that are required on a website and put links to them. And of course, all the websites I've done, only about a third of those things were on those websites. But it was just requiring all this stuff. And, even like disability, accessibility stuff for disabled people. But in the legal thing, like under some of that stuff, it was actually promising that the company, which would be the owner of this website, is willing to do all of these things. And so I got on it and on ChatGPT and I said, what? And it's like, well, you need to have this stuff. It's like I got in an argument with it. And I said, you're promising things that are not even possible. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is the text that it created on this one page and one other would have got you into massive legal problems. It did that because it assumes you're a giant company and you have a team of lawyers and you have all this staff and they can deal with all these things. But if your company's not huge and you don't have that infrastructure, you can't promise things that are going to get you in trouble. So it was doing stuff like that. But overall, I would say that LLMs, I'm just going to start wrapping this up. I got to go. But LLMs are still in development. They're still getting better and better and better. But, I have to tell you guys, and let me know in the comments if you kind of think this is going on. But what the companies are saying, like OpenAI and Elon Musk's XAI and some of the others, I try not to mess with Gemini too much because I've always felt like Google is a monopoly, and if you guys have done a Google search in the last couple of years, it's just a bunch of crap garbage. It used to be a really good thing, and now it's not. And I think that I try to avoid Gemini when I can. But what I'm talking about is these other ones, these other AI companies. I really, really think, just from being in the nitty gritty with these things, they're overhyping these things right now. Now, when I talk about massive job loss and things like that, I am very serious about that. And at the time, right now, Jobs are being replaced by this imperfect AI. Companies are looking to save money, and even if the AI is imperfect, they're willing to put up with it. But I would say that these companies are really overhyping right now what these things can do, and I think it has to do with keeping their stock prices up. I'm going to tell you, there's two things going on. They're overhyping, and in the future, yeah, these things are going to be amazing. They're going to do a lot more than they do now. It's going to blow you away in the future, but right now they're making things out to be better than they are. And I can tell you right now, these things have major problems, and they're not accurate all the time. And you need to double check the work that is put out by these things, because it could get you in trouble. And one of the things you can do if you want to is, if ChatGPT creates something, have Grok check it. And don't tell Grok that ChatGPT made it. Just say you have this new person at the office that created this, because if Grok hears that ChatGPT created it, I've had Grok really go out of its way not to insult other chatbots. So, you can have AI check each other's work without telling them, because if you tell them it's a new person at the office, then Grok immediately thinks, okay, there's probably errors here, so we got to check it. And Grok can help straighten out some things, or you can do it the other way around. If you're, using any of the other ones like Perplexity. But, just keep in mind, these chatbots are not accurate. They're good at bringing some information that's correct, but no, I'm finding all kinds of issues. So anyway, this was an impromptu video. I hadn't put out one out in a little bit. I'm gonna, next few videos will be really amazing. Very organized lists of things that are going to impact the world when it comes to AI, and it'll impact you. But this particular video, I just needed to get real with you guys and what's going on. So I'm going to get back on this project. It's a humongous project. I have my own mental deadline for this thing. And once I get it done, it's going to be very amazing. It's going to be very, very cutting edge. And I'm going to have done it with AI. But I'm going to have to spank and slap AI along the way. Say, bad. Do it my way now, since you can't figure it out. But eventually I'll get it done. So, all right. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. A lot of my videos are things you won't hear anywhere else. So, catch you later, guys.